So, Ron, you're one of the rare guests on the show that is actually from Kelowna, born and raised here.
Yep.
What was it like growing up on this farm?
Oh, the farm was lots of fun growing up. I mean, when I was really young, I mean, we still had dairy cows here, which, I mean, most people don't think of that ever as a Kelowna thing. You know, that's a Chilliwack thing or something. But, yeah, there was lots of dairy cows when I was a kid until I was about 5 or so, and we got rid of them all. But, you know, and then it was always a good place to play and explore, and you know, there's lots of history on the farm here, so there's always lots of things to get into trouble with as a young kid, and lots of neat things to see. So yeah, it was great growing up here.
Has it changed much?
The farm? Yeah. So dairy cows are long gone. You know, some of the uses of the barns have changed, and some of the uses of the farm. I mean, now we're doing pumpkins, which I know when my grandparents were here, that was something they would have never thought of, you know, or dreamed of. I mean, Agri-Tourism is such a new kind of concept, I think, in general, and especially for the Okanagan. Yeah, they would have never expected me to be doing this, I think, over the years. So yeah, it's changed for sure.
What was that animal? We
just heard. I've got a couple of the donkeys just in my backyard, and then they come out a little bit later here for so people can see them out in the yard here. So yeah, that's not so fun to hear that at 5 a.m. when you're still trying to sleep.
Yeah, so they just basically saying, "Wake up, give me some food."
Yeah, they're saying, "Give me food. We want grain. We want our little breakfast."
Yeah, our cats do the same thing. It's not quite as loud.
Exactly the same, yeah.
But, yeah, so, and you met your wife here in Kelowna.
Yes.
Is she from Kelowna as well?
She was originally born in Ontario, but was, I think, 2 when she moved here. So pretty young. So most of her life's been here.
Right.
So, yeah.
And was she a farm person?
No, not at all.
But she convinced her to come to the farm.
Yes, I kind of convinced her. I mean, spent lots of time here, you know, as we started going out and stuff like that. And, yeah, and I think, you know, it just grew on her. Like, you know, I think a lot of people, you kind of realize, you know, what farming's about, and, you know, being outdoors all the time and different experiences. And, yeah, we made the decisions together to, you know, come back to the farm and do what we do now. So, yeah, I managed to fool her somehow.
Right. And you had twin boys.
Yes.
And then you moved to the coast for a while.
Yep.
Why did you
Kelowna in the early 90s when I got done school was not a very good place to get jobs. I mean, people complain about the sunshine tax in Kelowna sometimes now, but it was certainly been worse over the years. So when you got done school, you know, university, it was very hard to get into any sort of jobs in Kelowna. You're limited to some of the government locations, like the city of Kelowna and stuff, and quite frankly, yeah, most of them weren't hiring at the time, so you end up having to go to Vancouver. I don't think really Calgary was such a draw at that time in the early 90s. Everybody that, you know, if you had to go to the big city, it was Vancouver, and you're able to get work down there. So that's where I ended up having to go and worked for quite a long time down there.
Yeah. So what happened to the farm when you were there?
Yeah, so when I was in Vancouver, I mean, my parents and grandparents, and they were still alive. I mean, they just operated it basically as a hay farm and with some horses here. And that was kind of the status quo and what was being done during those years.
And when did you decide to come back?
I think it was early 2000s. We kind of, it was getting very expensive to live in Vancouver. And I mean, it's so much worse down there now.
Yeah.
You know, for me, commuting was from the suburbs into downtown Vancouver, where I had to work, was an hour plus in the mornings, and then an hour and a half to 2.5 hours at night. And having young kids, it was like, well, they're just about in bed by the time you get home.
Yeah.
So we started thinking about, you know, it was time to come back to Kelowna, you know, see if we could find some work up here. Things looked like they were improving. And we had seen a lot of different farms and what they were doing down in the Port Coquitlam, Langley, Fort Langley areas. And so it gave us some ideas that if we did come back, and this is what we could try to do on the farm. So
what kind of things did you see?
Yeah, so it was quite foreign for us when the kids started going to these farms, because you know,
so
I'd
like
never
school
seen
trips, they would.
Yeah, so like in kindergarten, preschool, and then in grades 1 and 2, you know, they start going out to these farms, and you got pumpkins all over the place and hay rides going on and cool displays set up and it's like, whoa, what the heck is this? Like, this wasn't anything I'd ever seen in the Okanagan before. So when we started kind of looking at it down in those big farms and seeing how successful they were being, the amount of people that they were drawing in, and all the different activities. And I think my wife and I, because growing up in Kelowna and seeing a lot of the family activities disappear, we thought, this is a good thing to bring back to Kelowna. It fills the need and kind of brings things back to Kelowna, I think, that made it so attractive in the first place, being a family vacation location, or, there was lots of family activities, and they were just disappearing. So we thought this was a perfect fit to bring back. So, yeah, it was probably early 2000 when we really kind of started getting the ideas, and then it was about 2004, I guess it was, when we moved the family back, and then it took me a little bit of time still to transition and actually get a full-time job here, which was in 2006.
So what did your family think of these ideas?
Oh, everybody thought I was crazy because, again, it was a foreign concept to anything in the Okanagan, right? So without other family members going and seeing what was happening, you're just describing and sending them photos, and they go, oh, yeah, nice, whatever. And nobody really understood what the potential was or what was involved. So, yeah, it took a little convincing, and that's why, when we did start, in 2004, we just started with, growing 100 pumpkins here and kind of making sure that, they're going to grow here. And if they do grow here, fine, then, we can expand on the idea and start expanding it and get it to what we've seen at the coast.
So what was it like? Was it a decision and then you just started?
Pretty much.
Customers came right away?
Yeah, we just put up a few signs down the road, and it was just a few locals from, within the kind of the kilometer radius that kind of came out, and I had the kids when my twins were still young, and my, just trying to do the math here, how old they were. I guess they would have been probably about 12 or something. Having them out there and just selling the pumpkins to some of the neighbors as they drove in to, here's our pumpkins. And, so I had them involved right at the beginning. But, yeah, it was just to sell to some locals, make sure there was some interest, and, like I said, make sure they could even grow on the farm here.
And you said yesterday was your busiest day ever.
Busiest opening ever.
Busiest opening.
Yes.
So what's an opening like?
So for us, we open up all of October, but usually we open up the last Saturday of September. Okay. That's when we actually open. So we only run for, I guess it's 5 weeks. It's a pretty small season. So, yeah, we just, advertise on social media that we're opening up, and we get a lot of word of mouth, and, others like yourself that come and talk to us. And so, yeah, it was weather cooperated, and we had a nice day, and, yeah, it was lots of great people came out and shared the day with us, so it was fantastic.
So how did you get from a handful of neighbors coming to check it out to the biggest opening ever?
Oh, by the second year, we realized, okay, so let's try this a little more, and obviously with the farm here, we produce hay, so in the far fields down by Mission Creek, went down there and we baled some hay up. And the second year then, we had a few more pumpkins to offer, and we offered a hay maze. And we started sending out little brochures to some of the preschools, kindergartens, that kind of thing. And that got some word of mouth happening as well. And of course, not everybody books, but when they do come out, they come out with all the parents and come out with their one child that's maybe in that preschool. And they kind of go, oh, well, this is something kind of different, and it's something, we'll come out on the weekend with the rest of the family.
Right.
So you get that kind of word-of-mouth effect happening. By the third year, we expanded to add a couple cutouts. We still had the hay maze, but I think we expanded it a little bit. And we actually hosted all that in our parking lot. And again, we just tried to add a few more pumpkins. Did a little more advertising. At that point, though, we were starting to find print media wasn't really working for us that well. I mean, we had coupons and things like that were offered, but just for example, one of the local papers we advertised in, they've got a huge circulation, but we'd get 1 or 2 coupons come in, and it didn't seem to make sense. And I think people were seeing the ad, but they weren't clipping it out and bringing it in. So we kind of decided to keep working on social media at that point. That was fairly new for us, but set up a page on Facebook and start advertising that way. And over the years, that was definitely probably our go-to way of getting the word out there.
Yeah.
And then I guess probably about year 3 or 4, we expanded into what's now our into the hay field. We were getting a few more people coming out, a few more school groups coming out, and again, that just kind of snowballs to the point where you're going from maybe 100 kids in year 2 coming from the various little preschools and stuff to like now it's probably close to 4,000 kids we get coming out from various schools.
Mostly local kids, or are there tourists coming?
So definitely it's expanded. So probably maybe 5 years ago or so, we started getting some schools that were coming from as far away as Penticton or Summerland. There was even some that came down from Vernon. We had some from Merritt. So it becomes more of not just a local event anymore. It becomes more of a regional one.
Right.
So certainly that's with the schools. As far as just guests in general coming in, we have people coming from the Kootenays, that come to the Okanagan to do their, say, shopping for the month or whatever, visit some of the big box stores. Well, they're messaging us and saying, well, we're coming this day. Are you going to be open? And it's like, we'll be here till October 31st. And but we're getting it, as far as Salmon Arm, Kamloops, like I say, Nelson Trail, down south as far as, Penticton, Osoyoos, Merritt. So it's definitely become, very regional now in sort of our draw. Mm-hmm. So it's pretty cool to see that too. That's beyond what we ever thought would happen.
That's great. So you've got some fun activities for kids. Tell us about that.
Yep. So, over the years we just kind of kept trying to add things, and we still have a few things in our pockets that we want to add. But right now we've got the hay maze, obviously, for the little guys to go through. We've got... for our paid activities, we've got the hay ride, which takes you across the farm down as far as Mission Creek, which is about 1 kilometer away. Mm-hmm. We have the corn maze, which is about 3 acres in size, and we have a big slingshot where you get to shoot apples or gourds or corn, depending on what we have available at the moment, and you shoot them at a fun target out there. So usually that one's pretty popular because everybody likes to see the exploding gourds or exploding apples as they hit the target. Mm-hmm. And that one's, it's quite a big setup we have for that one. But there's lots of other free things. Like I mentioned, the hay maze. We've got the cutouts out there. We've got some history you can look at. Some of the older people are more interested in that than obviously the kids. But there's something called the duck races over there, which you just have an old-style hand water pump. Mm-hmm. And you put little ducks or the rubber animals into the little trough, and you pump the water, and it race against your neighbor there, and to see who can get the little rubber animal to the other end.
Right.
Got the petting animals there, and so the donkeys. We've got llamas in the pasture. The little goats and chickens are running around. Mm-hmm. Horses are a big draw. They're right in the corral, right next to everything here, and. Of course, there's lots of wildlife to see on the hay rides as well. So there's lots of different things to see. Did I mention cutouts? Lots of cutouts there. Right. So you got lots of photo opportunities. Yes, we still get the piggies. So we got 3 pigs. One's a little shy about coming out, but the other 2 come out all the time.
Right.
And amongst all this, we've got a cat running around us here, which is usually here to greet everybody. And there's a couple dogs as well, and they usually are out here just sort of laying beside the cash register here and greeting people. So. Right. So there's lots going on.
The dog that greeted us, what kind of dog is that?
I always forget the breed names, but it's a Marma cross of the Kangal, which are both livestock guardian dogs. Mm. So we do have lots of coyotes around, being a rural area. There's lots of things that attract coyotes to your yard, like the chickens for the neighbors. They've got lots of sheep over there, so coyotes are definitely a problem. Mm-hmm. So having a big dog like that just deters the coyotes from coming into the yard and hurting any of your animals. So
Luke Menkes is a realtor with RE/MAX Kelowna. He loves what he does. We asked Luke if he had any regrets about moving here in 2011, and he always says, yeah, one regret, and that is he didn't move here sooner. When Luke came here, he didn't know anyone. He didn't know the neighborhoods or anything or anyone besides his daughter, who was 6 years old at the time. So he knows what it's like. Now, he's an expert and has helped well over 100 single people, couples, families, and investors with their real estate needs in the Okanagan. If you're new to our beautiful city, Luke can help you get connected with great lawyers, dentists, carpenters, landscapers, swimming pool installers, you name it. And whether you're new to Kelowna or not, Luke knows real estate. He can help you find a great property, negotiate a good deal, and hold your hand all the way through the process until the day you get your shiny new set of keys. Luke is known as a no-pressure kind of guy. He's had clients where it took even a year or more to get them into a property. He just doesn't believe in rushing things. On the other hand, when you decide it's time to act, he's diligent, and he'll work day and night until the job is done. Give Luke Menkes a call or a text message at any time, 778-215-4273. Again, that's 778-215-4273, 778-215-4273, to chat with Luke about real estate.
Do you know how much that dog weighs?
Yes, because she had some health issues, and we had to get her weighed a couple times there. So last weight was about 140 pounds.
Wow.
And we got to still drop her about 10 pounds. I'm hoping she's lost a little bit of weight, but she, when she goes out there chasing coyotes away, she does pretty good, but then she sort of loses gas after a little bit. So when she gets in a little better shape, she'll be doing good again.
Right.
This is 2010. This is my daughter, who's now 13.
No.
Here. Yeah. This is the same thing. Came on a kindergarten trip.
That's great.
That's how we learned about this place.
Yep.
And you're selling vegetables here. What types of products do you have?
Yeah, so we've got primarily pumpkins. We do have gourds, spaghetti squash. We sometimes get apple juice in from another orchard that we deal with. We do offer the kids, when they come out on their tours, some apples, which is also from a local farm. Sometimes we'll try and grow sweet corn. They didn't do very good this year because of all the smoke. My corn did terrible. But primarily it's just coming down to the pumpkins. I mean, I kept thinking we had about 20 some odd varieties of pumpkins, but we did a recount the other day, and we got 53 this year, different kinds. So, I mean, it's everything from small ones to large ones. You got edible ones, like the pie pumpkins. You've got, just looking out across the farm here, you got the nice white ones there, some yellow ones. You got gray ones called, actually, funny enough, they're called blue dull more, but we've got the goosenecks, the birdhouses. So there's lots and lots and lots and lots of different pumpkins. Most people are just familiar with your garden variety that you see at the big box stores, which is just one size, jack-o'-lantern pumpkin. But there's way more than that, which is what makes it fun.
The edible pumpkins, do they taste different?
Yes, they're different. I'm not the baker in the house. My wife is definitely that. But the pie pumpkins have got a little more natural sugar in them than a regular pumpkin does. They also are not as wet. So when you make a pie, it can be a little too damp. But if you use a pie pumpkin, it's got a little firmer consistency when you make the pie. So it is better to have a pie pumpkin for your baking if you're going to use them. All right. So it does make a difference.
And you can help us out if we want to buy one to make a pie.
Yeah, I'll have to look around out there and see where they've gotten stashed right now, because everybody's been bringing them in like crazy. So we'll see if we can find something.
Right. So you have a 5-week season.
Yes.
What do you do the rest of the year?
Well, I do work at a communications company in town, and that's the job. That's my 9 to 5 kind of, so to speak. Mm-hmm. So I do that all year round, and then I save up my holidays, and then for my holidays I burn 3 weeks of it during October, so they can be on the farm here. Nice. So the rest of the time, it's just you come home from work and you take that hat off, and you put the farm hat back on, and away you go with doing your chores till 7, 8, 9 at night, whatever sunlight you got, kind of thing, or whatever needs to be done.
Yeah.
And but yeah, I for October I have to use my holidays up. So sometimes I'm lucky and can save a couple days or maybe a week and actually go on a real holiday somewhere to Victoria and see my older boys or something. But that's kind of what you have to do with farming, I guess.
And how about your 3 kids? Do they still help out? Do they
Yep. So my older boys, even from a distance, my older twins in Victoria there, they sometimes help out with, one last year came up with a new design for a logo for us and helped out with a few things online. My other 2 kids, my youngest son and my daughter, so they help out. My son helps quite a bit with doing the hay rides and going and getting pumpkins and doing with some of the chores. My daughter helps in here with running the cash registers and helping set up, in the mornings and so on when we need to prior to opening and help cover things up at night before we close. So yeah, the kids are all still heavily involved, and I think that's for us a big part of being a farm is doing the family, doing this all together and. You support each other and work together that way.
Yeah, that's great.
So how does the flooding affect your...
Well, that's a whole other thing.
I see the pictures on Facebook.
Yeah, so flooding was actually quite a big problem, and I sort of keep trying to rattle on government and stuff like that a little bit. But I always say we're the canary in the coal mine saying that there's a problem with the creek, and everybody keeps ignoring it. Mission Creek had a very long history of a lot of flooding, and that's why the dikes were built. Because, flooding went as far as over to Benvolan Road. There's old photos of a foot of water on Benvolan Road. There's photos of, actually I got an old article from 1949 where it blew out just below the East Kelowna Bridge out of the banks and was flooding all of what's now Canadian Tire and stuff. So you think about all those homes that are there now, the businesses that are there now, and what they've done to mitigate from preventing that from ever happening again. It's not there. The cop-out that the provincial government and to a lesser extent the regional local governments, they just kind of go along with what the province says. But they say it's fish habitat. Well, I've been watching this last month, and literally I've seen 2 kokanee behind our place, which, we have about 400 meters, I'd say, of creek bank. And so it's a pretty good sample section there, and there's nothing. And it's because the gravel that's come down is so big, and you think a little tiny kokanee, he has to stir up a little area in the bed to lay the eggs. Well, if the rock's bigger than him, he's not going to be able to move that rock. Yeah. So it's very frustrating because, not helping the kokanees, despite what they're saying. The creek bed is rising, and that's how we ended up with so much flooding going on. So if you got the creek bed coming up, all that water in the flood is coming across our fields, and it was as much as 50 acres down there. Yeah. I kind of joke, I've got so much sand down there, I could host Kelowna's biggest beach volleyball tournament down there.
Maybe you should.
Yeah, maybe I should, make a point. But the canary in the coal mine part is if the creek's coming up and it's flooding my field and depositing sand on it, every part is rising except for Kelowna. They try to say, well, we put some material on the dike to raise it. Well, if you go look behind where I work, along Mill Creek, the creek actually eroded out that same material that they put in. It didn't help. All it did is make it a nice biking path. That's all it did, right. and raise it a bit. But you can see the water eroded out several sections of that same type of gravel material they used. So
where is the sand coming from?
Well, we're all actually down in the flats here. This is a lot of clays and silts, but up in the mountains, if you go up there, it's a lot of gravels and stuff like that. And so Mission Creek's just a giant conveyor belt. It picks up all that material, and it just pours down the channel. So it's well documented by government and stuff. There's a lot of material coming down. There's been lots of studies on maybe ways to deal with it. But the dredging that they used to do stopped probably 15 years ago, I think it was, roughly. I don't have the exact date.
Do you know why?
I think it came down to money was probably a big part of it. And because some people were starting to talk about fish habitat. But again, like I say, fish used to be in the numbers of about 100,000 up to the mid-70s. now they're down to, like I say, I can only see 2 in our little section here. They say it's the dikes that have caused the problem, but I disagree. There was an issue with the province. They introduced a type of shrimp into the lake that caused a huge competition between the small kokanee and the shrimp what they were feeding on, and that contributed to a big decline in numbers. And that was well documented, but they're not sort of saying if that's still why the issue is that it's crashed or not. But so it's a very complex issue, just to kind of sum it up. There's a lot of different things involved in it, but the status quo isn't working, and something needs to be done. My worry is, they're just going to keep letting the creek fill up. Our place will just continue to get buried in sand. But this year, and which is what I told our MLA, is that it's going to hit the Swamp Road roundabout first, and it did this year. It flooded that out for a day. And after that, if you look on the maps, you've got the H2O Center, you've got a golf course, you've got residential. Mission Creek is going to start causing bigger problems, and if they don't do something about it, all that well-documented history is going to come back again. And it's, I don't understand why they don't want to do something, but I think it comes down to the dollar. And there's programs that are working down in the Fraser Valley. I think it's between Chilliwack and Hope. They actually go and clean out the gravel, and then they sell it. So they actually make it a revenue-neutral activity, and it helps because it's there hasn't been problems with the fish habitat that I'm aware of. It's helped keep the creek clean because obviously it's a major shipping, especially as it gets down towards the end. You got the port of Metro Vancouver down there, so there's a lot of pros to having that cleaned out. And I've said to Steve Thompson, my MLA, it should be done here. That the same model. Why isn't it looked at where that gravel could be resold? There's a lot of construction going on. Everybody needs gravel, and make it, revenue neutral. So,
what does Steve say?
Oh, he was going to look into it, and then I got hold of a report that office when he was Minister of Forests and Natural Lands, again supported dredging the creek, cleaning it out. So I sent him an email and said, this report just came out from your very department supporting again. This is like the 3rd report that supported cleaning out the creek. What are you doing? Well, he never replied. And about a month later, I got it from somebody in the Penticton office saying, no, they're not doing it. Wow. It's like, how much, it's not just me anecdotally saying what needs to be done, but it's reports that are supporting it. It's something that needs to be looked at.
It's interesting because so many of us live in this city, just a few kilometers from you, and we're not aware of most of the things you're talking about. Hopefully we can raise awareness a little bit.
Well, even for yourself as a realtor, it's sort of the Real Estate Association of BC. I can't remember the exact name.
Council?
Yes, they were supporting actually some flood studies going on in BC right now because obviously they see how it can affect, obviously, real estate values throughout the province. And sort of the side effects that come with flooding, obviously. So they were putting some money into having some research done and so on. And they've been issuing for about the last 3 years some reports about where municipalities are at with all this now. We've seen what happened with Mill Creek, and right going through the downtown, and that's a tenth of the size of Mission Creek. Yeah. So
sometimes politicians don't act until it becomes an actual crisis.
Yes, and that's the worry.
The farmers like yourself are aware of it.
Yes.
Often years before the general public are aware.
And you raise the flag, you do your due diligence. I don't want to see, somebody have to unnecessarily get flooded out because some bureaucrat put a dollar on that it was cheaper to have the creek, flood than it was to worry about, the consequences of somebody's house being destroyed.
Right.
So,
would you like to nominate someone to come on the show?
I was wondering if I could nominate maybe a couple people.
Sure.
And keeping with an agricultural theme, I was thinking about James and Christie of Caldwell Farms, just farther up in South Kelowna. Okay. And I was also thinking about Brenda, who's at Curly Frog Farms. And the reason I had both those names is I had one time been involved with a program that was offered through the regional district here in Kelowna. There was one contractor that was hired there, Tracy Frederickson, and she helped a lot of different farms come up with business plans. And for myself, I never never had one at the time, and figured, well, you need a business plan unless you're going out to get a loan, kind of thing.
Right.
But it was instrumental in helping me kind of focus a few ideas, and at that those things, we met some of these other individuals, and I think they've all been pretty successful in what they're doing. So I think those would be good people to talk to.
Great. Well, thanks so much, Ron. I know you're extremely busy. We're in the middle of your season, or just at the start
of it.
Season.
Yep.
So I really appreciate your time.
I appreciate you guys coming out and sitting out here with me in the cold and the wet.
Our pleasure.
Thank you.